Hello there! It's Miss Birds here, and we're back for another day of art class. So today we're going to be talking about the color wheel, and we're going to start putting in the colors on the color wheel in their appropriate positions. Now, for today's lesson, you're going to want to make sure that you have colored pencils, okay? And if you were able to pick up your work packet, you should have this 8-pack of colored pencils. But if you don't have this 8-pack, but you have other colored pencils at home, that is great. That's exactly what we're going to need, okay? You will need colored pencils for this assignment. You're not gonna be able to do it with marker or crayon because crayons don't really blend and neither do markers. So you wanna make sure you have colored pencils. Remember, if you haven't picked up your work packet, you can still do so any day of the week from 9 to 12, okay? 9 to 12. But for today's assignment, you're going to need the colored pencils, okay? We'll say this, you need to have this paper, okay? If you don't have this paper, then you're gonna have to make this on a plain sheet of paper, okay? This color wheel, which has 12 spaces on it, and I'll show you how to make that in a second. But if you were able to have your work packet, you were able to grab it. We're going to be working from this paper today, okay? If you don't have this paper, again, you're going to have to use a different piece of paper. It doesn't matter if it's lined or if it's blank, that's fine, but you will need a pencil and you will need a ruler, okay? So if you do not have this piece of paper with the color wheel already preset on it, what I need you to do is you need to make the start of your own color wheel. Okay, and the way that we're going to do this is first by creating a circle. So a tip for creating a circle is to kind of get your hand or your arm in the groove of creating the circle. And I have this little plate right here, so I'm just going to move my paper over a little bit. But you just kind of want to get your hand into the groove of creating a circle. And then when you feel like your arm is in the rhythm of creating and you feel like you got a good thing going, then you want to put down your circle on your piece of paper. Okay, and I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna darken this a little bit. That way it's easier to see on the screen. Okay, it's okay if your circle is not completely perfect, but as long as we have a general circle shape for our color wheel. Okay, so create your circle. Then what you wanna do is create a dot in the center point of your circle. You want to have it as even as possible. And after you create your dot, we're going to be creating a peace sign, okay? So I'm going to go from my dot, from the center of my circle, straight up, okay? And I'm going to create 2 lines coming diagonally down here. Again, you want each of these shapes to be about the same size, right? So that way all of our places are the same size. So I'm gonna go again from the center down and from the center down. Okay, generally making sure that all 3 of these spaces are the same amount. Now these look a little bit bigger than this one, but for the demonstration, I'm just gonna move forward and start with the lesson, okay, with the rest of the shapes. Okay, so right now we have 3 spaces, but there's 12 colors on the color wheel. Okay, so each one of these spaces has to be divided into 4 different shapes or spaces, right? Because 3 times 4 equals 12. Okay, so the way I'm gonna do that is by creating 3 lines in here. So I'm going to go from the center into one of my shapes, and I'm going to draw 3 more lines going out from the center. Again, I want to make sure that they're evenly spaced. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to repeat that step in my other spaces. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the final one here. 1, 2, 3, 4. right? So if I count them all, I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 spaces, okay? So that will be your color wheel. Now, once you have those spaces done, okay, I'm gonna flip over on this side, and you wanna grab your colored pencils. Now, we're gonna be mixing our own colors for this, so the only colors we're actually gonna use are blue and red and yellow, okay? So I'm gonna pick out my yellow, I'm going to pick out my blue, and make sure you don't pick violet, because if you look here, blue and violet are very similar, right? So make sure that you're actually reading it and that it says blue on your colored pencil, okay? And red. So these are technically the only colors that we need because we're gonna be mixing all of our other ones, right? These are our primary colors, and these are the only colors that we need to make all of the other colors, right? By mixing them together. So the thing with the color wheel is every color has its own specific space, okay? And we start by laying out our primary colors, okay? Now, they should be evenly placed on the color wheel. So when we put them on our color wheel here, okay, we should have an even amount of space between each one of our colors. So I'm gonna start with yellow at the top, and actually I'm gonna mark it. So I'm going to use the upper just to the left, okay? And I'm going to mark it yellow. Now, when we're doing a color wheel, like I said, all of the primary colors have to be evenly spaced, okay? Which means that there should be 3 spaces in between yellow and red, and 3 spaces in between blue and yellow, okay? So we wanna make sure, again, that they're evenly spaced on our color wheel. That way we have room for our secondary colors to go in between, and also our tertiary colors, which we haven't really talked about yet, okay? So what you're gonna do is from your yellow, you're gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4. And on the 4th one, that's where you're gonna put your next primary color. So I'm gonna put an R for red, okay? And then from red, I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, and on my 4th space, that's where I'm going to put blue. Okay, so to make sure that we have it right, we should have the same amount of spaces in between each of our colors for each one, right? So I have yellow, 1, 2, 3, red, 1, 2, 3, blue, 1, 2, 3, yellow. There we go. So now we're gonna start taking our colored pencils, and I'm only going to color it in this very, very top one, okay? We're gonna be using this for other things, so don't fill the whole space out, but I want you to just start by pushing down really hard so that we get a really nice, rich yellow. Okay, make sure that you're staying within the lines. And you know, of course you want to make sure first that you do it correctly with all of the spaces. But if for some reason you accidentally put your yellow over here, it's okay, because the color that's next to yellow is still gonna have a little bit of yellow mixed into it, okay? Of course, we wanna make sure that all of our colors are in the right space. So make sure that you're counting out your spaces, right, before you go through and actually color it in. Okay, so again, I'm going to go into my blue section, and I'm gonna push down as hard as I possibly can to make sure that I get that really nice, rich pigment. Okay, and we're gonna practice doing light and dark areas on our color wheel. So remember, the harder you push down on the pencil, the darker the value is gonna be, right? So value is the lightness and darkness of a color. So if we want a really, really deep, vibrant blue, and we want it to be very dark, okay, we wanna push down very hard, put a lot of pressure onto our colored pencil. And as we go through and want to create a lighter value, we'll just take pressure off of the pencil and do a really nice, light and easy color. Okay, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to color in my red. And remember, red, yellow, and blue are our Yes, primary colors, right? Red, yellow, and blue are our primary colors. And remember, primary colors exist on their own, right? They are found in nature, and they cannot be made by mixing together any other colors. So I'm gonna go through. Okay, remember, I'm just making sure that I'm staying in on that top line. And the same thing if you have created your color wheel on the back. Just do a nice little layer, okay, but don't fill in that whole shape because we're gonna practice taking pressure on and off of our colored pencil to create different values. All right, so I have my primary colors. Okay, so now what I wanna do is I wanna put in my secondary colors. And remember, we get a secondary color from mixing together two primary colors, right? So the colors on the outside mix together to make the color on the inside. Now, when you're creating a color wheel like this, okay, we have our primary colors evenly spaced, and we're gonna make sure that our secondary colors are evenly spaced as well, okay? So when we mix together two primary colors, we get the color in the center. So your secondary color shouldn't go here right next to your primary or here next to your primary over there, right? Our secondary colors are gonna go in the center, okay? Which will leave two blank spaces on the edge. So yellow and red make orange, right? Orange is our secondary color. When we mix together red and blue, we get violet, right? Not purple, but violet. So I'm just gonna put a V for violet. Okay, remember I'm going right in the center space, leaving two blank spaces on the side of my secondary color, okay? And then I have blue and yellow, which make green, right? Green is my secondary color, okay? So when you fill in your primary colors, remember we have 3 spaces in between each primary, and it's the same thing with the secondaries, right? If I were to count the spaces in between each one of my secondaries, look what happens. 1, 2, 3, violet. 1, 2, 3, green. 1, 2, 3, orange. Okay, so again, they should be evenly spaced. And once you have your primaries and your secondaries in, you should see that every other space on your color wheel is a blank space, right? So I have a blank space, yellow, blank space, orange, blank space, red, blank space, violet, blank space, blue, blank space, green. Okay, and that's gonna leave room for our tertiary colors, which I know we haven't discussed in class yet, but we definitely will. Okay, so this is where it starts to get fun. We're gonna start mixing our colors together. Now, I'm going to take my 2 primary colors, right, yellow and blue, and I'm going to mix them together to get green, okay? Now, it does not matter which one you wanna start with, okay? You can start with your blue or you can start with your yellow. I always like to start with the color that's a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna start with my yellow. And the important thing when you're mixing the colored pencils, I'm not pushing down too hard, okay? Just enough to fill in the space. But you wanna make sure that you get an even blend of the colors. So however much yellow you put in, okay? You wanna make sure you're putting in just as much blue, okay? And at first, you may not be able to see the color change right away, but you will eventually. Okay, so I've put in an even layer of yellow, and the important part when you're mixing the colors is that you get an even layer. So you don't want to leave any white spots on your paper. Okay, I can see that it's slowly turning into a green. Slowly but surely turning into a green. I'm just going to flip my paper so you can see this section a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to go through. Okay, I've colored horizontally in one section, and now I'm gonna go in vertically in the other, right? That's gonna help to assure that I get all of my spaces. I don't have any white spaces. And if you want that green to be very vibrant, you just wanna make sure that you're pushing down a little bit harder on your pencil, right? The harder we push down, the more darker the value is gonna be. And when you're mixing your colored pencils, sometimes if you're really close to it, it's going to be hard to see the color change. So sometimes you just need to take your paper and put it away from you, and then you'll start to see the color a little bit more. Okay, so I can see that I've got a pretty nice green forming here, right? Got that nice kind of green color. I do see some areas where I see a little bit more yellow than blue. So I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna finish with my blue, making sure, again, that I have a nice even layer, right? Because if you don't have an even layer, you're probably gonna see one color more than you see the other. And I don't wanna see blue more than I see yellow, and I don't wanna see yellow more than I see blue, right? It should be an even blend so that all we see is green. Okay, so I'm going through, and I'm gonna make it a little bit darker, adding in my yellow so that I have a really nice, bright secondary color. And I think it's looking pretty good so far. Okay, so remember, when you're looking really close up at it, your eye's gonna be very nitpicky, right? So you're probably gonna be able to see the difference between the blue and the yellow. So again, if to you, you can't really see the green forming, what I want you to do is take your paper after you've mixed your color, and I want you to just move it away from your eyesight a little bit. So you can see it's off camera a little bit. If I move it further away from my face, then you'll probably see the green a little bit more clearly, right? And as I'm looking at it now, my green definitely looks different from my yellow and my blue, right? It doesn't look like two of those colors just on top of each other. It looks like they've been mixed together, okay? So we're gonna use that same process for creating orange and creating violet, right? We're taking our two primary colors and creating our secondary color. So please make sure that you're only using your primary colors when we're mixing. Don't take the secondary colors out of the pack and just put them on here, right? So don't pick orange out of the pack and just color this one orange. I want you guys to practice mixing, right? So the whole point of this assignment is to get familiar with working with colored pencils and how to learn how to mix the colors ourselves, okay? Even though I know you have them in your colored pencil pack, the skill that we're trying to learn is trying to understand how we can get a smooth, even tone so that we can get a nice secondary color, okay? So we're gonna finish out this color wheel, and we are going to do orange and we're going to do violet. Okay, so you already know the process of mixing together two colors. So I want you to next, on your own, mix together the yellow and the red to make orange, and mix together the blue and the red to make violet. All right, and then we will do the tertiary colors when we come back next week.